in 2002, I visited the National Statuary Hall, and I was working in the largest relief in the United States, which we did carved in Italy in stone. And the other sculptor that was chosen with me to go and retouch this large piece at the Catholic Basilica, it was in 6 pieces, and we had to retouch the joints of the stone so that you couldn't see them. And so we were there, and CNN saw us, and E. Clay Shaw, who was the congressman at the time from the area where I live, was in Washington, D.C., and I had done his sculpture. So he saw this in CNN, and so he sent a message to me. He said, "Would you like to come to the Statuary Hall and see the National Statuary Hall with the curator?" And so I was really excited. And he said, "Well, you're there, you'll get a tour of the whole Capitol." And so he sent for me, and while we were in the Statuary Hall, the other sculptor that was with me, he was much older than me, and he started crying. And I said, "What is it?" And he said, "Well, I did this sculpture that is in front of me when I was 18 years old. I never thought I would see it again. And I am in the most important place in the world where these decisions that affect the whole world are made. And so I am just so honored." And so I looked around and I said to myself, "My goodness, what would it be like to do a sculpture for the National Statuary Hall?" So this was maybe probably 23 years later. I see this and I said, "Well, I am going to go for that." The curator of the Capitol, Dr. Moses, said, "How many times would Dr. Bethune go and meet with the president or go to the White House or the Capitol?" And they said, "An average of 9 times a month." I thought that was really amazing. And I asked if I could hear her speeches, and so I could hear her voice while we were at the Library of Congress, while I was looking through the papers that she had written and these notes that she had made to the president. And that was spectacular. I mean, her voice was so, which is something that I'm very impressed about, her voice. She had a way of speaking that was so educated, so direct, and so gentle. She could say everything slow, direct, and pleasantly. That takes a lot of, I think, confidence. So I think she had so much confidence, and that is one of the things that impressed me about her when I heard her voice. And then I could see that somebody that would be like that would accomplish so much. Another thing that I learned were about her teas, the teas that she gave on Fridays, and all the different organizations that were started at the time, different African American organizations, the heads of them, she would invite them to come over and have tea. And she would ask, "What is it that you would like?" And with this, she would go to the president and communicate. So she was a communicator. She was an excellent communicator. And that is something also that impressed me, which I think a lot of the politicians nowadays should learn about the manners and the respect that she had for everyone that she spoke to. And this is something that really impressed me.
And so how will you animate the life of Dr. Bethune in stone?
Yes, first, we animate our bodies through our souls. And so I want to know as much as I can about Mary Bethune, to see what was inside this body, what moved her, and what were her feelings about so many different causes and family, children, the government, what was right, the ideals. I want to know everything that I can about her to see how she came to be. And I'm learning a lot. I have a lot of people helping me, which is really important. I have probably the best people that could help to make this sculpture possible, which I am so thankful and so grateful for all of this help. I have 288 photographs that were given to me at the Library of Congress. They are so thrilled about this project, and they have given everything, their soul for this project. Like when I arrived at the Library of Congress, they had the room with this long table, gloves, all papers written by Mary Bethune, the speeches that I was listening to at the same time. So then I moved on to the National Council for Negro Women, and I met Janice, and she was another person that deserves to be mentioned, because she is just so excited about the project also, and knows so much about the history. And I was at the house where she was having these teas, and so this was like just moved me so much that this is history. This is where Abraham Lincoln would also have his meetings, and his chair, his favorite chair, was there, all in the middle of all these photographs and paintings of Mary Bethune. So it's such an honor, you know, to get to know her more from all the different points of view, from the different people who have studied her for so many years and have been part of this legacy that she has given all the excitement and I would say confidence for people to go on continuing her legacy and getting many of the ideals that are still not completed. So I think that that's another thing that I see that she did. She encouraged everyone to move on, to get educated, and to believe in themselves and continue with their projects. Every one of the people, for veterans, for children, for education, the university, everybody that she encouraged to move on and achieve. So, I was born in Puerto Rico, the island of Puerto Rico, and since I was a little girl, I knew that I would be an artist. I had a family that was very encouraged. They encouraged me a lot to continue to grow in the arts. My grandfather, one of the people who fundraised the most for the Museum of Art in Fort Lauderdale, and in Puerto Rico. I don't know why I said Fort Lauderdale because I lived there. But in Puerto Rico, he fundraised for the museum. And then when I was 9 years old, I used to go to the museum and copy the paintings, especially Velázquez. I love Velázquez. And I was 11 years old, and I sold my first painting by Velázquez, and so I knew right then I am going to dedicate myself to being an artist. I will be a professional artist, and I had this dream to work in marble. And so it was impossible to learn in Puerto Rico. And I went to a university in Houston, and I kept asking, where can I learn to carve marble? And nobody could tell me. So finally, in Fort Lauderdale, years later, a sculptor who was visiting from Italy, he said, you need to come to Italy. You need to learn from the best. And I said, well, you know what? I want to learn how to carve marble. He said, well, it's the perfect place. And this is known all over the world. It's a town that is 1,000 years old. It's called Pietrasanta, and it has been a colony of artists since the Etruscans. And it is directly below the Alps, where the marble quarries are, which were quarried by the Greeks, later by the Romans, and in the Renaissance were reopened by Michelango. So we will be using the same marble coming from those mountains, from the cave of Michelango, for this project. Since I have been in Italy for 25 years, and I know so much about the marble in the quarries, but it was my first job when I decided to move to Italy so I could learn to carve marble. And you know, at first a lot of the artisans looked at me and they kind of laughed because a woman, and at the time I was so tiny and skinny, but I had this dream to learn how to carve marble. Normally I asked, I said, how long does it usually take? They said about 10 years. So I have been there 25 years, and I have carved many sculptures in marble, and I was chosen to work in some of the best projects. I have worked for Botero and some of the best sculptors in the world as an assistant, and they chose me over all these other men and other people. So I feel so excited that I'm finally going to do a project that I think I have been trained my whole life for. Okay, to create a sculpture, you have to first know what you're going to be doing from that big block of marble. And so I usually start by making sketches, and I'm talking like pencil sketches, and then I go into a different type of sketch, which is a three-dimensional sketch in clay or in plastiline. And that I work with an armature, and I make like probably about a foot sculpture. And then after I am satisfied with that, I can enlarge it to any size. And then I work on all the details. But before I do that, of course, I will have to know exactly what I'm going to do, because in marble, you cannot change anything. It's not like working on a pliable material. Not at all. It's not like working in bronze. In marble, there cannot be any mistakes. So I have to be so careful with my first sketches, and then the maquettes, and then the size that I will work. The Mary Bethune sculpture will probably be between 8 and 9 feet. So that is a very large scale. You're talking a lot of weight, and I will be working in the best studio in the world. It's known for all the works that have come out of there, including years ago, sculpture of David that went into the Piazza della Signoria in Florence. And that was before these people were alive. Now, the people who are there right now in this studio, they also created the base for the Perseus, who is in the Piazza della Signoria, and continue to do works all over the world. And this is where I will do the sculpture. It has the most famous, but also has the best facilities. We have ways to move the marble because in order to work it, I have to have it's from the ceiling. You have ways to turn it over, and so many times. And you can imagine a piece this big being turned over and work so much. I work with hammers that are very modern right now, but I finish all of my work with the chisel and the hammer, all by hand, like the eyes, all the details that you will see in the clothing, in the shoes, everything the fingernails, everything will be done by hand, and the expression. So I also use some of the most modern techniques too. We have robots there too that can help rough out the piece, so that, for example, a piece that is going to be unveiled in a year and a half, we have to have shipping time, which will take probably about a month, and then the capital wants a lot of time to install it. Nothing can be done in a hurry there, and working in marble cannot be done in a hurry. So I need to use the most time in order to get her expression and the details of the dress and so on, but especially her expression. So this type of works can be helped with the use of some of the best technology right now. So I may or I may not, depending how time I'm given to complete the work. So how much I will use technology or not.
That's good. Thank you.
It's good.